Salette in 1846 was a small village in the Alps, surrounded by hamlets with thatched roofs. A few hundred mountain people lived there, poor and forgotten, lost in the solitude of the high mountains and ignored by the rest of the world. The peaks of Gargas and Chamu rose more than 6,500 feet high and closed off the horizon. They formed a great half-circle, inside which stood a kind of dome called the Plainau, whose top did not reach 6,000 feet. Between the Plainau and the Gargas lay a tiny plateau called Sus les Baisses, and a small valley where the Saisia flowed. First a simple stream, then a torrent cutting deep gorges into the rock. At this height there were no trees, only mountain pastures where shepherds led the herds of the village and the nearby hamlets. At dawn on September 19, two modest flocks, walking along steep cliffs, arrived at Sus les Baisses. Altogether there were about 10 animals, reddish cows, a gray heifer, and 2 goats. The first flock was led by an 11-year-old boy. The young shepherd ran after his cows, whistling and throwing stones. His name was Maximin, or Maimon for short, and his dog was called Lulu. The second flock followed, led by a girl of 15 who looked barely 11 or 12. She walked quietly, half asleep. She was the little shepherdess of the Pra family, farmers from the hamlet of Ablandons, one of the villages of La Salette. Her name was Melanie. Far behind them came a farmer with a scythe over his shoulder. He was the boy's master, Pierre Selmy, also from Ablandons. A great event was very near. The place had been chosen, the date, the witnesses, even the smallest details. At the sound of the Angelus, the children let their animals drink from a small dam roughly built on the Saisia stream. Then they led them about 50 steps up to the little plateau. They went back down to the stream, sat near a small spring, and ate their crust of dark bread with local cheese. Then they drank directly from the water. Lulu also had his share. Then the 2 little shepherds lay down on the grass near the dried-up spring in their bags, and they fell asleep. Melanie woke up first and immediately thought of her animals. Not seeing them, she became afraid and shook Maximin. "Maimon, come and see where our cows are." They climbed the slope of the little plateau and saw their animals lying peacefully on the slopes of Gargas, on the other side of the Saisia. Reassured, they went back down toward the spring to get their bags. Suddenly Melanie saw a ball of fire in the very place where they had been sleeping. It was so bright that at first she thought the sun had fallen there. "Maimon, come and see this light." The little shepherdess dropped her stick in surprise. But the sun was still high in the blue sky, and no one else saw what the 2 children saw inside the globe of fire, not even 3 other shepherds about 600 feet away. Lulu, the small bad-tempered dog, showed no surprise. He did not growl, and the birds in the sky continued singing happily. That evening, after the herds returned, Pierre Selmy stopped his young shepherd at the door of the stable. "Well, Maximin, you didn't come to see me in my meadow this afternoon like you promised. You knew where I was." "Master, it's because something happened." "And what happened?" "We found near the stream a beautiful lady who spoke with Melanie and me for a long time. At first I was afraid. I didn't dare go get my bag near her, but she said to us, 'Come closer, my children, do not be afraid. I am here to tell you something very important.' And then we were not afraid anymore." Maximin then told his astonished master the whole story of that afternoon of September 19, 1846. Then he ran to the Pra house, where Melanie was still in the stable taking care of the cows. At the door he met old Mother Pra, called Karen, spinning her wheel in the last light of day. Maximin said to her, "Hey, Mother Karen, didn't you see a beautiful lady all on fire pass over the valley?" "A lady?" "Yes, a shining lady who spoke to Melanie and me on the mountain." One can imagine the old woman's surprise. Neighbors ran over, and everyone pressed the child with questions. Melanie was called from the stable. In the Pra kitchen, the dancing light of the fireplace lit up the vaulted room, filled with the smell of the evening soup still cooking. The family and the neighbors listened, fascinated, to the little shepherdess's story. "If my people do not want to obey, I am forced to let go of my son's arm. It is so strong and so heavy that I can no longer hold it." Mysterious words. But what amazed and troubled the listeners most was this long story told in French, even though Melanie only spoke and understood her local village dialect. Who was this mysterious, beautiful lady who had spoken to the children about her people and about her son's arm? Old Mother Pra declared, "This beautiful lady is certainly the Blessed Virgin. There is no one else in heaven whose son rules the world." Then she turned to her son Jacques, who was 25 years old. "You heard what the Mother of God said to this child. And after that you still go on swearing and working on Sundays." "Well," Jacques answered, I'm not going to believe that this little girl saw the Blessed Virgin. She doesn't even say her prayers. The priest will know better. So they decided to send the children to him. The next day was Sunday. The children were very nervous when they knocked on the priest's door. Good Francois opened to them. She already knew the news but wanted to hear more. What do you want to tell the priest? He doesn't have time now, he's preparing his sermon. You can tell me everything, it's the same thing. In the kitchen of the rectory, the children told Good Francois in detail everything they had seen and heard the day before on the mountain. But the office door was half open, and the priest heard everything. The priest came forward and said with deep emotion, "You are very lucky, my children, you have seen the Blessed Virgin." The church bells rang for mass. The villagers slowly walked toward the church, talking about the great news everyone was discussing. The mayor and his council had already talked about it. "Nonsense," said the village guard. As they left the rectory, Melanie could not help saying to Maximin, "You see, Maimon, I told you it was the Blessed Virgin." It was time for mass. Maximin, accompanied by his master Pierre Selmy, returned to Cour, the nearby town, to find his father. Once again, Maximin missed mass. Melanie went toward the church. Very shy, she sat on the last bench, far in the back, and felt pierced by the overly curious looks of the crowd eager to know everything. At last, the parish priest climbed into the pulpit. Rarely had a sermon been listened to so attentively. The old priest seemed deeply shaken. He stammered, sobs choked his voice. The faithful could catch only a few words. The Blessed Virgin on the mountain, 2 little shepherds. So the parish priest truly believed that the Blessed Virgin had really appeared to the 2 children. He thought of informing the bishop of the diocese, who alone, after examining the facts, could declare whether it was permitted to believe in the apparition or not. The mayor, however, was worried. A cultured and clever man, he decided to carry out his own investigation. After Vespers, he went to the hamlet of Ablandons, about 1¼ miles from the village of La Salette. He went to the house of the little shepherdess's employers to gather information and to see the child, whose name he had not even known the day before. Pra explained to him, "I have had her in my service for 6 months now. She is a good little girl, but shy, fearful, and especially very careless. She does not think of changing her clothes when she is soaked by rain, and she would sleep in the stable or under the open sky if we did not watch over her. Then there is great poverty in her parents' home, who live in Cour. She has never gone to school, knows neither how to read nor write, nor even her prayers. She cannot recite the Our Father all the way through, nor make the sign of the cross properly. She was placed with strangers at a very young age, and her youngest sister is still begging." They called Melanie. The mayor warned her sharply, "Be careful, my little girl, not to add anything or leave anything out." The child was afraid but answered bravely, "I said everything that the lady asked us to say." The mayor slammed his fist on the table so that the dishes rattled. "You told your master that none of this was true." "Either you or my master is not telling the truth," replied the child. The mayor tried to frighten her. "Melanie, this story will send you to prison if you keep repeating it." Trembling, the child answered courageously, "The lady told us to say it, so I will say it." Then the mayor changed his tone. "Listen, Melanie, you have begged for bread before. Your little sister still begs. This is a good chance to help your parents, whom you love." He took 20 francs from his pocket, a small fortune for such a poor child, and offered them to her. "These are yours. Take them, but say nothing about what you saw and heard on the mountain." The child refused without hesitation. "You could give me this whole house full of gold. Nothing will make me say anything other than what we saw and heard." For 3 hours the mayor questioned and pressured the child, but without success. He grew angry, he who thought himself clever and experienced, who had handled difficult matters so well. He felt beaten by this poor little girl. Deep down, he was also troubled by Melanie's long story and wondered what truth might be hidden in it. That evening, he went to see Pierre Selmy, because he wanted to understand the affair clearly. Meanwhile, Maximin, accompanied by Pierre Selmy, had returned to Cour, about an hour's walk from La Salette. With its 1,200 inhabitants, Cour was the main town of this remote mountain region. People came there to buy supplies from merchants and craftsmen. The stagecoach from Grenoble to Gap stopped there. The authorities were also there, police officers, called in French gendarmes, court clerk, notary. It was also the center of the deanery, headed by Father Malin. It was there that the wheelwright Giraud lived, the father of Selma's little shepherd. Maximin, with his teacher, bursts into the tavern. "You know," Selmy says to Giraud, "your son has just had a rare piece of good luck. The wheelwright does not understand well, Bad luck, what has happened to him? Not bad luck, but good luck, loud laughter in the tavern. Yes, he saw the Blessed Virgin on the mountain. Sneers. In fact, the people there hardly practice the faith. The young men go to Mass only to play tricks on the girls. They swear and work on Sundays all summer. The two men who make their Easter duty do it in secret, for fear of being mocked. They do not even listen to Maximin's story. That evening, back in Ablandons, Pierre Selmy was approached by the mayor. "A week ago," Selmy explained, "my little shepherd was sick. So last Sunday I went to court and asked one of my friends, the wheelwright Gerard, to lend me his little boy for a few days until my shepherd recovered. At first Gerard did not want to, because the boy is scatterbrained and cannot keep still. He might let the cows fall into the cliffs. But after I kept insisting, Gerard finally agreed, on condition that I keep a close eye on his son, and I returned that same evening with the boy. Since Monday he has gone up to the mountain with my animals. I myself went there every day to cut the meadow I have at the plain now, and from far away I could watch the boy." "Is that where he met Melanie?" "Yes. The children did not know each other before. The little girl is also from Kor, but she has always been placed with other people. It was I who said to Maximin on Thursday evening, 'There is the little shepherd girl from the Pra family who is going to take her cows up to the mountain. You can go with her if you wish.' It was only the day before yesterday, Friday, that the children met for the first time. Every day Maximin came to see me in my meadow, but on Saturday he did not come. That surprised me, and I mentioned it to him in the evening when the herd returned. That was when he told me the story of the lady on the mountain." "Is the boy very absent-minded?" "Yes, very. His father was telling me that last month he let his goat get strangled. The other day I caught him very early in the morning sharing his food with the dog. When I pointed out to him that he would have nothing left for the day, he answered me, 'But I am not hungry.' He is still a good little boy, unable to tell a lie or to do harm." The mayor learned that Maximin could neither read nor write. He had never gone to school or to catechism, he had not made his first communion and did not know his prayers. The wheelwright Gerard would be a good worker. Buthai's wife died when Maximin was very young and then he began to drink, and besides he has asthma and rheumatism. After his wife's death, the wheelwright married again. He had other children, but the stepmother mistreats Maximin. "The poor boy is not happy," adds Selmy. The mayor decided to go the next day to Kor, to see the wheelwright and question the child. The mayor had barely left when Baptiste Pra, with a neighbor, Jean Mousier, came to see Selmy. "What the little girl said is important. We must put all this in writing." Pra knows how to write well, but with difficulty from lack of practice, and besides he does not know French and spelling very well. Still, they will try. In Pra's kitchen, Melanie dictates slowly, the farmers talk it over and agree on the words. Baptiste holds the pen awkwardly and writes the words clumsily. Late in the night the work is finally finished. Pierre Selmy, Baptiste Pra, and Jean Mousier sign at the bottom of the last page. The next day, Monday, the mayor went down to Kor and found Maximin at his father's house. He began by threatening the child. "What have you done? You have spread a tale that upsets people's minds and can only lead to bad consequences. I would rather have killed someone than have invented everything you said, together with Melanie." "Invented? How do you expect such things to be invented? We said what we saw with our own eyes and heard with our own ears." Maximin was as unshakable as Melanie. The mayor then decided on a reconstruction of the events on the mountain. The following Sunday, September 27, about 10 people climbed the mountain. The mayor with the two little shepherds, the policemen, Selmy, Pra, Mousier, and a few witnesses called for the occasion. Melanie walks silently, shy. Maximin runs right and left, whistles, jokes, rolls stones, careless and light. The mayor is worried, but keeps good hope of catching the children in a lie and of unraveling the mystery of this troubling story. A damp mist covers the mountain and weakens the rays of the sun. It is already cold. Arriving at a cliff, a policeman, annoyed by Maximin's behavior, grabs the little boy by the seat of his pants and holding him over the drop, threatens him, "If you do not admit that all this is a lie, I will let you fall." The child turns pale with fear, but an inner voice whispers to him, "Do not be afraid, my little one, do not be afraid, no harm will be done to you, no harm." Comforted like this, Maximin says bravely, "I said everything the beautiful lady told us to say." Taken aback by such an answer, the policeman sets the child back on his feet. On the mountain, an unusual fact first strikes the witnesses. The spring of the little fountain has begun to flow. Normally this spring is dry, it flows only after storm rains. After the dryness of this summer, the soft bubbling of the little fountain points to a mysterious and troubling fact. It seems like a kind of confirmation of the children's story or a mark left by the passing of the lady. That very evening, the witnesses learned that the spring had begun to flow after the mysterious event. Shepherds had noticed it and had been surprised by it. But this does not lessen the harshness of the policemen, put in a bad mood by this forced climb. One of them threatens Maximin again. "If you keep on lying, we will put you in prison. We will give you only a little piece of black bread." "Well, I will eat it," answers Maximin calmly. Furious, the policeman becomes more threatening. "If you had to keep silent or die, what would you choose?" "I will die," answers the child calmly. The mayor steps in and asks Maximin to give a complete and detailed account of everything he saw and heard that afternoon of September 19, 1846. Maximin tells, "It was a Saturday, about 2 or 3 o'clock. After giving our cows a drink at the stream, we left them in the meadow and fell asleep near the dry spring. Then Melanie woke up first and woke me up to go and see our cows, and we saw them lying on the other side. Then, as we were coming down, Melanie was the first to see a great light, and she said to me, 'Maximin, come and see this light.' I went toward Melanie, then we saw the light disappear and we saw inside it a lady, sitting near the little spring, her head in her hands, and we were afraid. Melanie dropped her stick and I said to her, 'Keep your stick. If it does anything to us, I'll give it a good hit.' The lady stood up, crossed her arms, and said to us, 'Come closer, my children, do not be afraid. I am here to tell you some important things.' And then we were no longer afraid. She looked like a mother whose children had beaten her and who had run away into the mountain to cry as much as she wanted, and I wanted to say to her, 'Do not cry, madam, we will comfort you.' Then we crossed the stream, and the lady came toward us, about 10 steps from the place where she had been sitting. And she said to us in French, 'If my people do not want to submit, I am forced to let go of my son's arm. It is so heavy and so hard to hold that I can no longer keep it. I have been suffering for you for such a long time. If I want my son not to abandon you, I have to keep praying to him without ceasing for you, while you do not care at all. No matter how much you pray, no matter what you do, you will never be able to repay the trouble I have taken for you. I gave you 6 days to work, I kept the 7th for myself, and they do not want to give it to me. That is what makes my son's arm so heavy.' Maximin speaks calmly, with seriousness and composure. Everyone listens with emotion. The mayor cannot believe his ears. Pra, Selmy, and Mousier, who wrote down the same words under Melanie's dictation, are deeply moved. Never could such an uneducated little mountain boy have invented words like these. How is it that Maximin, who does not know French, can repeat by heart such a long speech? He who, a moment ago, was so careless and scatterbrained, now speaks with the gravity of a priest in church reading a sacred text. The young and clear voice of the child continues. "If the harvest goes bad, it is only because of you. I showed you this last year with the potatoes, and you paid no attention. Instead, when you found some that were spoiled, you swore and used my son's name in your bad words. They will keep on rotting, and this year, at Christmas, there will be no more of them." Maximin then stops his story to give an explanation. We did not understand what she was saying. Melanie turned toward me, and then the beautiful lady said, "Ah, my children, you do not understand French. Wait, I will tell it to you another way." And she spoke to us in our local dialect. Maximin then continued in dialect. The listeners became more attentive, clearly moved by words that now seemed to be spoken directly to them. The child went on. After that she said to us in French, "Well then, my children, you will pass this on to all my people." Then she crossed the stream, and without turning back toward us, she said to us again, "Well then, my children, you will pass this on to all my people." Then she went up about 30 steps, sliding over the grass, as if she were floating or being pushed. Her feet only touched the tips of the grass. We followed her up the small hill to about the place where we had gone to look for our cows. Melanie went in front of the lady, and I was beside her, 2 or 3 steps away. Before disappearing, this beautiful lady rose up like this, Maximin shows with his hand a height of about 5 feet. She stayed like that, hanging in the air for a moment, then we no longer saw her head, then her arms, then the rest of her body. She seemed to melt. Then there was a great light left, which I wanted to catch with my hand, along with the flowers she had at her feet, but there was nothing left. And Melanie said to me, "She must be a great saint." And I said to her, If we had known she was a great saint, we would have asked her to take us with her. After that, we were very happy and we talked about everything we had seen, and then we went back to watching our cows. Thus ends Maximin's account. It is now Melanie's turn, but since she dictated her story, they are content to question her instead. The mayor, having the secret hope of managing to make the child contradict herself, says in an official and harsh tone, "Now it's your turn, Melanie. You are going to tell us without lying what you saw. If you lie, we will put you in prison with Maximin. Where did you see this light?" As I was looking while going down, Maimon was behind me. I began to see a light over there, on some stones piled one on top of another. Our bags were on them, so the light was shining on your bags. Yes, and then I saw the light sparkle and move. It was sort of round. When you saw this light, was there no one there? No. When the light began to move, we could hardly see it. It dazzled us and we rubbed our eyes. When we began to see it, we saw it rise to the height of a person, and as it was turning and sparkling, we began to see inside the light. We saw the hands and the face becoming white, and she had her hands like this. The child hides her face with her arms, and then we began to see very bright pearls, and we saw something like a crown around her. Were you able to make out the face of this woman? We could not look at her well for very long. And why? She shone too brightly all around, and we could not look properly. We rubbed our eyes, and then we looked again, and as soon as I wanted to look at her, she dazzled us. Were you close to her? We were 4 or 5 steps away from her. We had stopped when we saw the light, and we were a little afraid. When she stood up straight and put her hands like this, the child crosses his arms on his chest. She spoke to us and came very close to us. Instead of going straight, she went down as if she wanted to follow the water as it flowed down. As soon as she told us to come forward, we crossed the stream, next to the spring where we had eaten, not far from the place where we had slept and left our little bags, Maimon's, on the stone, mine beside it. And that is when she spoke to you. Yes, and she was really crying. She was not making faces like we do. I could clearly see the tears flowing from her eyes. They kept flowing and flowing. I rubbed my eyes, then after a little while I looked again, and I saw them still flowing clearly, but I never saw any touch the ground. They disappeared into the light before reaching the ground. And how was this woman dressed? She had a white dress, a white scarf tied behind her back. A chain about 3 fingers wide was hanging, and then there was another small chain with a crucifix, on one side of the cross a hammer, on the other a pair of pincers. She had white shoes with shiny buckles and roses around them. We could not look well because of the brightness. It was like when you try to look at the sun. She had a head covering with roses of every color, and there were also roses around the scarf. Roses of every color? Yes, there were pink ones, red ones, white ones, blue ones. Yes, of every color, but not like those in our gardens. They were much more beautiful. Why didn't you take one? We did not dare. Later Maximin wanted to take a rose from her shoe, but he could not. The lady melted away when the lady walked. She seemed not to touch the ground, the grass did not seem to bend under her feet, and the roses did not seem to be crushed under her steps. She cast no shadow. She was bright and transparent. We could see through her the mountain, the stones, the grass. When we were going down toward her, we cast a shadow, but when we were with her, we did not. The mayor wants to stop there. You have a lot of imagination, Melanie. That is a fine story you and Maximin have made up to get people talking about you. It could cost you dearly. Then, speaking to the policeman, I think that before long you will have 2 little rascals to take to prison. They are more stubborn than mules. Maybe it is the devil these children saw, suggests one of the witnesses. That is quite possible, replies the mayor, and that is what I would like to know. I will have them examined by the parish priest of Kor. Maybe he will explain everything to us. And the mayor thinks to himself, what if these children are telling the truth? The parish priest of Kor, Father Malin, also wants to go up to the mountain. He sets out the next day with 4 witnesses, his sacristan and the little shepherd. At the Ablandons, he stops at the Pra family's house to take Melanie with him. On the way, Maximin cannot help questioning Melanie. The lady was for a little while without saying anything to me, and she was speaking. I could see her lips moving. What was she saying to you? She told me something that she forbade me to tell. I am glad, Melanie. She told me something too, but I do not want to talk about it. It is a secret, and I will not tell it to you. On the mountain, Father Malin questions the children. Melanie, you do not understand French. You have never been to school. How could you remember what the lady was saying to you? Did she say it to you several times? Oh no, she only said it to me once, and I remembered it well. And anyway, I do not really understand, but when I say what she told me, those who understand French understand it. Even if I do not understand, that is enough. And you, Maimon, did you understand? I don't know, I did not ask her. And what did the lady say in the local dialect? Maximin then repeats the words spoken in the local dialect by the beautiful lady. If you have wheat, you must not sow it. Everything you sow, the animals will eat, and what does grow will turn all to dust when you thresh it. There will be a great famine. Before the famine comes, little children under 7 years old will begin to shake and will die in the arms of the people holding them. The others will do penance through famine, the walnuts will go bad, the grapes will rot. After that, explains Maximin, the lady said something in French to me, saying, "You will not say that nor that." Then she kept silent for a moment, and during that time I was playing. Then she continued in the local dialect, "If they are converted, the stones and the rocks will turn into heaps of wheat and the potatoes will be found already planted in the fields." Then she asked us, "Do you say your prayers well, my children?" "Not very well, madam," we answered. "Ah, my children, you must say them well, morning and evening. When you cannot do better, just say one Our Father and one Hail Mary. And when you have time and can do better, you must say more. In summer, only a few rather old women go to Mass, the others work on Sundays all summer, and in winter, when they have nothing else to do, they go to Mass only to make fun of religion. During Lent, they go to the butcher like dogs." Father then asks Maximin a question. "Is that all the lady said?" "No, she added something after the grapes will rot, but we cannot say it, it is a secret." Father would very much like to know this secret, but despite his insistence, he will learn nothing about it. Then he asks a question to Melanie. "You claim that the lady said, 'I gave you 6 days to work.' Did this lady say that it was she herself who gave 6 days, or did she say that it was her son?" "I don't know," answers Melanie. "She said it like that." Father is puzzled. Then they all kneel beside the spring that is still flowing, the miraculous spring, and pray together to Our Lady. They take as a pious keepsake a piece of the stone on which the lady had sat. Now, for the parish priest of Cour, one duty imposes itself, to inform his bishop. Monseigneur de Brouillat, Bishop of Grenoble, is an old man of 80 years, but despite his great age, he still has full clarity of mind. He is also a devout priest, and his joy was great when he received the letter from the parish priest of Cour informing him of the affair of La Salette. He alone can officially pronounce the authenticity of this apparition, but first there must be an investigation and a strict examination of the facts. He then writes to his priests, "Wisdom and duty require of us the greatest caution, and above all absolute silence about this affair of La Salette." Next, the civil authorities become alarmed. The administrations fear miracles and apparitions. The newspapers talk about them. People's minds grow excited. Crowds stir. Public order is disturbed, and the police are mobilized. The king's prosecutor in Grenoble then comes to investigate in person and goes up to the Ablandons accompanied by 2 court officers. Melanie relates the events with precision and answers with ease despite all the traps set for her. Baptiste Prat must swear under oath to the truth of her statements. The king's prosecutor supposes that this tale of an apparition was invented by some person who must be unmasked. Pierre Selmy is questioned and declares, "While the little boy was watching my cows, I never lost sight of him. I saw neither priest nor layperson come near him to talk with him. Little Melanie went several times to watch cows in her master's field while Maximin was with me. I saw her constantly alone, and if someone had come to speak to her, I would certainly have noticed." The king's prosecutor then asks the local judge, called the Justice of the Peace, of Cour to summon the little shepherds and question them. The Justice of the Peace learns nothing new, and in his report he states that the 2 children were heard separately. Each of them was told that, being before the courts, they must tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and that Melanie was asked to reveal the lady's secret. Pressed to declare it, she persisted in her refusal. This was not what the king's prosecutor was hoping for, how he would have liked to close the case. But the matter does not end there. After the failure of the investigations carried out by the authorities of Grenoble, the government becomes alarmed. The Minister of Justice and Religious Affairs writes to the Bishop of Grenoble to complain about the spreading of sinister rumors. He believes that advising peasants not to sow wheat is likely to threaten public order and invites the bishop to stop wicked plots. The dignified and brief reply of Monseigneur de Brouillat reminds him that in this matter, he had ordered his priests to observe the serious restraint required by the laws of the Church. The mayor of La Salette is very worried because he will be blamed for everything. The The prefect is furious and wants to dismiss him. The village is becoming the laughingstock of the whole country. The newspapers scoff and make fun of the affair. Curious people come in greater and greater numbers to disturb the peace of the place. And besides, there is nothing to be done with these children. They are more stubborn than donkeys. Neither money nor threats, nothing works. But who could have put this story into their heads? A new questioning by the policemen is necessary. The little shepherds need to be questioned very firmly. This fable must finally be put to an end. Again, the little shepherds are summoned to the police station and questioned one after the other in the presence of the mayor. It was first the little boy's turn. Maximin, there are people called sleepwalkers who do many things while sleeping. Maybe it was while sleeping that you saw this lady. But sir, if you do something while sleeping, afterward you know it was while sleeping, and I know that I saw all this while fully awake. I was not sleeping, really. Well then, tell me where this lady went. She disappeared into a light, and the light kept us from seeing where she had gone. However, she has been found. Soldiers led her to prison. Oh, anyone who can catch her is very clever. Maximin, do you want me to tell you the truth? Tell me, sir. You and Melanie agreed together and you were given money so that you would tell this story. Well then, since you know so much, how much was I given? Oh, the amount does not matter, but you were paid. I say no. If you do not want to believe it, then let it go. You wanted to make people talk about you. That will last a little while longer and then everything will fall. It will fall, it will fall. Yes, the day religion falls. The policeman becomes threatening. You are lying, I will tie your hands and take you to prison. All your threats will not make me say the opposite of what we saw and heard. One of these days they will catch you, they will put you in prison and take you to the scaffold. Well then, I will go up there. The mayor steps in. No use insisting with this donkey-headed boy, put him in the cell, that will make him think. Bring Melanie in, we have quite a few questions to ask her. Maybe we will have better luck with her. The mayor continues the questioning. Eleni, listen to me carefully. Maximin has confessed everything, he told us everything. Since you already know, why are you asking me? You were deceived. This lady came there while you were sleeping. A lady might well come, sir, but she could not rise up. The lady disappeared in a cloud. There were no clouds. But it is easy to wrap oneself in a cloud and disappear. Sir, wrap yourself in a cloud and disappear. At last, you could have been mistaken. And the spring, sir, why does it flow? The mayor continues. But at last, everything you are telling, someone taught it to you. Yes, indeed, sir, someone taught it to me. If I had not been taught, I would not know. And who then taught it to you? A person, sir. Oh, no doubt, but who is this person? The one I told you about, sir, the beautiful lady. That lady is in prison at Gap. Only God can put that one in prison, and I would very much like to be in that prison. The mayor's convictions begin to be shaken. These children must be telling the truth. As for the wheelwright Gerard, he thinks all of this is just nonsense. He did not even let his son finish telling him the story. What stupidity! My child saw the Blessed Virgin? It is some priest's servant who wanted to make a joke. The crowd of curious people fills his house from morning to night to question the little shepherd. The wheelwright is fed up. Leave my son alone and let him work, he has to earn his bread. Many behave rudely. Where is your son, that little rascal who wants to make all the fools who come here believe silly stories? The wheelwright is at the end of his nerves. One day, while Maximin is playing with a rope, he snatches it from his hands and, using it like a whip, strikes the poor child, then warns him, "Go now, and if you keep telling this story, you will hear from me again." Maximin, frightened, with hands and face bleeding, his clothes torn, is about to run away. Before crossing the threshold, he throws at his father, "And yet that beautiful lady spoke to me about you." The wheelwright is stunned. About me. What did she say to you? Maximin explains. She asked us, "Have you seen spoiled wheat, my children?" "No, madam," we answered. And then speaking to me, "But you, my child, you must have seen some once near the field at Lecoin with your father. The owner of the field had said to your father, 'Come and see how my wheat is going bad.' You both went there. Your father took 2 or 3 ears of wheat in his hand, crushed them, and everything fell into dust. Then, when you were coming back and were only about half an hour from Kor, your father gave you a piece of bread, saying to you, 'Here, my child, eat bread again this year, because I do not know who will eat any next year if the wheat goes on like this.'" "That is quite true, madam," I answered. "I had not remembered it just now." The wheelwright is stunned. He remembers perfectly that incident in the field at Lecoin, that spoiled wheat, those crushed ears that fell into dust. He is especially struck to know that this small event, forgotten by Maximin and unknown to everyone, had an invisible witness. So that beautiful lady Maximin speaks about was really there. She saw him giving that piece of bread to his son on a lost path in a lost land. She read the anguish of his father's heart, who does not know if he will have bread to give his children. The wheelwright does not let his trouble show, he only adds, "That is true, I remember it. In fact, you have never told me this whole story, I, your father, still do not know it." Maximin then tells the complete story, which his father listens to in silence. When he has finished, the wheelwright wants to strengthen his faith and asks for a sign from heaven. "Maximin, I think that this beautiful lady can certainly do something for me. I am sick, I have asthma. If she was clever enough to teach you all that, when I spent years trying to teach you the Our Father, then she can certainly heal me, and then I will believe." The wheelwright, accompanied by his son, hurries toward the mountain. When he arrives near the spring, he falls to his knees, cries and drinks water from the little fountain, then plants a cross on the very spot where Maximin had seen the beautiful lady. In the evening, when he returns home, he declares, "Wife, I am healed. I no longer have on my chest that millstone that was choking me. I am going at once to find Father to confess. It is done, I am converted." It had been 30 years since he had confessed, but he was a good Christian until the end of his days, and he died a holy death. A woman named Laurent in Cour, paralyzed by rheumatism for 23 years, could get up only with the help of crutches. She too drank the water from the miraculous spring and was healed. A young woman from Avalon, Antoinette Ballinat, had been lying on her back unable to move for 3 years, consumed by fever, thin as a skeleton, tortured by suffering. She was going to die. After a novena to the Virgin of La Salette, all pain disappeared. Suddenly she got up, dressed, went down the stairs, sat at the table and ate with a good appetite, slept wonderfully. Her doctor states that, if necessary, he is ready to sign with his own blood that this healing is a miracle. At the convent of the Visitation in Rennes, a nun enters into agony. They then call upon the Virgin of La Salette, and the dying woman is suddenly healed. In the diocese of Fréjus, another person is miraculously healed at the moment when she was about to die. There were many miracles in the years that followed. They were studied by a priest who later became Bishop of Cahors, Monseigneur Jure, who published 2 large books on the miracles of La Salette. All the healings were seriously checked with the witnesses, the healed persons, and the doctors. These miracles were the first sign from heaven. There was another sign from heaven. The threats announced by the beautiful lady were soon fulfilled. These were the years of the Great Famine. There were at least 100,000 victims of hunger in France, 1 million in Europe. The newspapers of the time speak only of misery. In Cour, people are dying of hunger. 15 days before Christmas, there are no more potatoes, just as the beautiful lady had announced. The good sisters of Providence use the flour just as it comes from the mill, without removing the coarse bran, so that they can share a piece of bread with the starving. Misery drives people to despair, riots break out in several regions, and the government forbids the export of potatoes. In England, Queen Victoria, in her speech from the throne of January 19, 1847, expresses herself in this way: "It is with the deepest concern that I must call your attention to the shortage of food that reigns in Ireland and in certain parts of Scotland. In Ireland especially, the lack of the ordinary food of the people, the potato, has caused cruel suffering, epidemics, and a great increase in mortality. The little children will die," the beautiful lady had foretold. In Cour, 24 children under 10 years old died in 1846 and 52 in 1847. These signs from heaven confirm the story of the 2 little shepherds, move people deeply, and begin a movement of conversion. People no longer swear, they eat simply on Fridays, and the churches are full on Sundays. On that day, no one works anymore. The people are so fervent that they sometimes lack prudence. One Sunday, when a storm was threatening, the priest publicly allowed his parishioners to gather their hay, but no one dared to go out into the fields. Then a kind of miracle happens. The storm does not break, and not a single drop of rain falls. Another time, the stagecoach from Gap to Grenoble breaks down in Cour. It was a Sunday. Impossible to find a worker to repair it that day. They had to wait until the next day. The people of Cour and the surrounding area like to go up the mountain in procession, and old sinners kneel beside the cross planted by the wheelwright Gerard. Everyone wants to go to confession. Maximin and Melanie have to go up whenever they can to tell the story of the apparition. They are attacked from all sides, harassed with questions, pushed around, squeezed, in danger of being suffocated by the crowd. One day Melanie has to run away as fast as she can, her brother covering her escape. The wheelwright Gerard has to tear his son away from the crowd, pull him out of the general fervor, and protect his flight. The two little shepherds have received a mission: to pass it on to all the people. They have understood what the beautiful lady asks of them, and they carry out their duty at all costs, with courage, often even with heroism. Maximin is a child with rather pleasant features, with beautiful and expressive eyes, very small for his age. He is nervous, quick, always in motion. It is impossible for him to stay still, to keep the least bit of self-control. It is while playing with his hat, his stick, or a piece of rope that he gives the most surprising answers. He keeps his seriousness only during his story, but once it is finished, he can be seen hanging from a rope, swinging, or else tipping back on his chair or sitting on the ground, without caring at all about the person speaking to him. Generous, unselfish, affectionate, truthful, restless, and carefree, he is so pure that he does not even know the language that would refer to vice. One day in November 1846, he knocks at the convent of the Sisters of Providence who ran the children's school of corps. He asks to see the superior. Mother Saint Theckel is in bed, ill, Maximin insists, and is finally brought in to see the nun. Her astonishment is great. Maximin takes an alphabet book out of his pocket and asks the superior to teach him to read. At once he receives his first lesson, but he has to come back. In the end, he is admitted to the school, first as a day student, then as a boarder. Maximin is not a brilliant pupil. He will say later, "There were little boys there, I was the biggest, even in ignorance." Melanie soon joins him. She is a child small for her age, with a gentle and pleasant face, a modest look, and simple manners. It happened several times that her father, because of gossip or bad advice, came to take his daughter back. The superior would then say, "Here is your child, do with her what you wish." But soon he would bring Melanie back, and the nuns received her kindly. Mother Saint Theckel and the nuns left nothing undone to teach and raise these children. Above all, they wanted to prevent them from taking too much pride and vanity from the special favor they had received. They made sure that the meetings in the visiting room did not take up so much of their time that it harmed their studies, and in front of all kinds of people, even high-ranking dignitaries, they remained natural, without showing off. When people question them, they change their tone, take on a calm and thoughtful manner, tell the facts simply, answer questions in few words, and step back as much as possible so as not to attract praise. Once the visit is over, they speak about it neither to each other, nor to their parents, nor to the nuns. They would gladly have done without these visits. One day someone asked Melanie if she was pleased and happy that the beautiful lady had given her this mission. "I would rather not be obliged to tell it myself, as long as people get to know it," she answered. They do not even notice the astonishing words that come from their lips. Without knowing it, they amaze and confuse people by the clarity of their answers and the rightness of their replies. Once someone asked Maximin, "But when people raise objections, do you search for your answers?" "No," he replied, "and often I answer without even noticing what I am saying." One day a priest asked him, "Aren't you tired of repeating the same thing so often? And you, sir, aren't you tired of saying Mass every day?" That must still bother you, especially when people ask you awkward questions. "Sir, no one has ever asked me awkward questions." Another time, "You did not see the face of the Blessed Virgin at all." "Oh no, I did as best I could like this." He blinks his eyes, raises and lowers his head. "How is it that you did not see the face of the Blessed Virgin since Melanie saw it?" "I don't know, maybe I was not good enough." "So Melanie was better than you." "I don't know, maybe Melanie needed to be converted." "I don't know, God knows." The two little shepherds do not like to play together. They do not look for each other and never miss a chance to upset one another. One day Mother Superior scolded Maximin for his bad behavior. Melanie stepped in and said, "How do you expect Maximin to behave well? He did not know how to behave in front of the Blessed Virgin." "What? He behaved badly in front of the Blessed Virgin? What did he do then?" "Well, first he had his hat on his head, then he took it off and spun it on his stick. Then he rolled stones right onto the feet of the Blessed Virgin." "Oh, about that," cried Maximin. "Don't believe her, sister, not even one stone went as far as the Blessed Virgin." "But you were rolling stones?" asked the nun. "Yes, but not one could hit the Blessed Virgin, that's for sure." "So you did not think to greet the Blessed Virgin, you kept your hat on in front of her." "Ah yes, at the beginning, but I did take it off all the same." "Yes, to spin it on your stick." Well, I didn't know who it was that was talking to me. Melanie didn't have to say things like that, and that I rolled stones with my stick, it makes me ashamed. Then turning to Melanie, when I am a missionary, if you come to my confessional, I will give you such a big penance that you will not be tempted to come back. If I am the only one at your confessional, Melanie answered, your confessional will very often be empty. Maximin wants to be a missionary, but he does not want Melanie to go with him. You can stay where you are, I do not want a woman following me. Despite these little quarrels, the agreement between the two children is complete when it comes to the visit of the beautiful lady. For 4 years they stayed at the convent of Providence. For 4 years they were questioned every day without rest. So, Maximin, it seems you get distracted at Mass, you turn your head. If the Blessed Virgin had spoken to you, you would certainly be more collected. Well, I am not good, that's all. How could the Blessed Virgin have spoken to you if you are not good? She spoke to us like to others, so that we would tell it, that's why. Bah. If the Blessed Virgin had wanted to speak to children, she would have chosen good little children, very devout with pure hearts. How do you know, sir, if I do not have a pure heart? What does that matter to me, sir? I am not obliged to make you believe it, but only to say it. Maximin kept all his life a painful memory of the questioning he was made to undergo by a specialist in children's education, Father Dupanloup, the future Bishop of Orleans, who came especially to court to see and question the two little shepherds. He found them unpleasant. Melanie displeased him, Maximin annoyed him, but the priest let nothing show of his first impressions. Back in his diocese, Father Dupanloup wrote down his impressions. I had taken little Maximin with me up into the mountains, and I made every possible effort to open his heart and win him over, and we became the best friends in the world. He hung on my arm and did not leave me for the whole day. I had him eat breakfast and dinner with me. He began to talk about all sorts of things with the greatest openness. But when I brought the conversation back to what interested me alone, he answered me briefly and simply, and he suddenly stopped in the middle of his lively chatter. So I began again with my efforts and my cleverest hints to make him speak about what interested me, and especially about his secret, without his noticing it, and without his wanting to. This strange secret mattered to me above all. I spared no charm within what seemed to me acceptable. After many trials and completely useless efforts, a circumstance that seemed very trivial offered me an opportunity that I thought for a moment was favorable. I had with me a travel bag whose lock opened and closed with the help of a secret code that made it unnecessary to use a key. Since this little boy is very curious, touches everything, looks at everything, and always in the most indiscreet way, he did not fail to look at my travel bag. And seeing me open it without a key, he asked me how I did it. I answered that it was my secret. He very eagerly asked me to show him. The word secret reminded me of his own. I took advantage of the moment and said to him, "My child, it is my secret. You did not want to tell me yours. I will not tell you mine." This was said half seriously, half joking. "It is not the same thing," he answered me at once. "And why?" I said to him. "Because I was forbidden to tell my secret, and you were not forbidden to tell yours." I did not admit defeat, and I said to him in the same tone, "Since you did not want to tell me yours, I will not tell you mine." He insisted. I myself stirred up his requests and his curiosity. I opened and closed my lock in a mysterious way without his being able to understand my secret. I had the unworthy behavior of keeping him like this, eager, excited, hanging on, for several hours. 10 times during that time, the little boy came back forcefully to press me again. I finally said to him, "But at least, my child, since you want me to tell you my secret, tell me something about yours. I am not asking you to tell it to me completely, but at least tell me what you can say about it. At least tell me whether it is something happy or unhappy. That will not be telling me your secret." "I cannot," was his only answer. I noticed that there was an expression of regret in his refusal and in his words. I finally gave in and showed him the secret of my lock. He jumped for joy. He opened and closed the travel bag several times. Soon I launched a new attack on him. I had given him a few holy cards. He had only a very poor straw hat, so I bought him another one when we came back to Kor, and I gave him a jacket worth 58 cents. He went to show the holy cards, the jacket, and the hat at home, and came back to tell me that his father was very pleased. He had spoken to me with a certain affection about his father's troubles, so I again took advantage of the occasion. "But my child, if you wanted to say about your secret what you can say about it, one could do a lot of good for your father." I went further and said to him, Myself, my dear child, I could get him many things and make him, at home, quite calm and quite happy, lacking nothing. Why do you insist so much on refusing to say about your secret what you can say about it, when it could be so helpful to your father and take him out of his troubles? Truly, the temptation was strong. The child had complete trust. He could not doubt my sincerity, and in truth, I was ready to do everything I was telling him. He could see it. It was clear. He answered me in a lower voice, "No, father, I cannot." I did not consider myself completely defeated, and I pushed the temptation still further, too far perhaps. A particular circumstance meant that I had on me a fairly large sum in gold. While he was wandering around me in my inn room, looking at all my things, rummaging everywhere like a real boy, my purse and that gold came into his sight. He grabbed it eagerly, spread it out on the table, and began to count it. He made several little piles. Then, after making them, he amused himself by undoing them and making them again. When I saw him quite delighted, quite thrilled by the sight and handling of that gold, I thought the moment had come to test and know for certain his sincerity. I said to him kindly, "Well then, my child, if you would tell me about your secret what you can tell me, I could give you all this gold for you and for your father. I will give you everything and right away. And do not worry, for I have other money to continue my journey." I then witnessed a truly very strange moral phenomenon, and I am still struck by it as I tell you about it. The child was completely absorbed by that gold. He enjoyed seeing it, touching it, counting it. All of a sudden at my words, he became sad, moved abruptly away from the table of temptation, and said to me, "Father, I cannot." I insisted, "And yet there would be enough there to make you and your father happy." He answered me once again, "I cannot," and in such a firm way and with such a tone, though very simple, that I felt defeated. However, so as not to appear so, I added in a tone that tried to show displeasure, contempt, irony. "But maybe you do not want to tell me your secret because you do not have one. It is a joke." He did not seem offended by these words and answered quickly, "Oh yes, I do have one, but I cannot say it." "Who forbade you?" "The Blessed Virgin." I stopped a useless struggle. I felt that the dignity of the child was greater than mine, and Father Dupanloup dismissed Maximin. But what Father Dupanloup does not say, and what Maximin would later complain about, is that after being questioned in a torturing way for 14 hours, the priest finally gave him a slap. One day Maximin was taken to Ars. He was received by the vicar, Father Raymond, who did not believe in La Salette. "I did not say that I saw the Blessed Virgin," explained Maximin, "but I said that I saw a beautiful lady." "You only saw a beautiful lady? Oh, now we agree, and I see that you came to Ars to take it back." "Well then, yes, do not believe it. Write if you want that I am a liar and that I saw nothing." A liar and an impostor. You may have fooled many people, you will not fool the curé of Ars. He is a saint who knows how to read thoughts. The next day Maximin spoke with the curé of Ars for about 10 minutes. The vicar was convinced that the child had seen nothing, and his conviction turned into certainty when he noticed in the evening that Monsieur Vianney refused to bless the medals of Our Lady of La Salette. If Maximin did not fool me, he explained to his vicar, he did not see the Blessed Virgin. "How is it that you did not demand a public retraction from him?" asked Father Raymond. "The child did not want to. I was displeased with him and he was displeased with me. But let us leave this matter of La Salette. It is nothing," replied the holy man. The mayor of Ars remarked to Father Vianney, "Father, the words of a man of weight like you will soon overturn everything about this apparition of La Salette." "You worry far too much," replied the holy priest. "If the apparition is the work of God, as you claim, all men may try as hard as they like and reject it, but it will remain in spite of them. If on the contrary it is the work of men, in spite of all their efforts it will fall into forgetfulness." "But father, are you sure you really understood what Maximin told you?" "Oh, very sure, but how I wish that child had not come here." The truth is that Maximin had wanted to check for himself whether the holy curé really read souls as people claimed. The child had not realized the consequences of his act, and now he does not dare to explain himself. The matter has the effect of a bomb. Bishop de Bruyas is worried. An inquiry is necessary. A canon, sent by the bishop, goes to see Maximin and approaches him with a smile. "Oh, my little one, I have always liked you, but now I like you even more." "And why, father?" "Today you are a very sincere, very honest little boy. You have just admitted your lie to the curé of Ars." "Father, I have not taken back what I said. We know, my child, what to think about it. La Salette is nothing now. You have wisely admitted it. You no longer have any secret. "But father, you are making fun of me." "No, my friend, I am not making fun of you." Then the canon goes to see Melanie and speaks to her confidently. "Well then, Melanie, you have been fooling us for a long time. Maximin has just admitted to the curé of Ars that you saw nothing on the mountain." "Oh, the poor boy." "As for me, I will always say that I saw something." "What do you mean by something?" "I mean a beautiful lady who spoke and who disappeared. And who told you everything that is in your story?" "Yes, father." Maximin had gotten himself into a bad situation. He was very troubled by this story, and people reproached him strongly for it. "The curé of Ars had the devil in his ear when I spoke to him," Maximin excused himself. "And you had him on your tongue," they replied to him. Maximin then had to admit the heart of the story, and then he added, "The curé of Ars believed me. He does not read the secret of consciences. Come on, your curé of Ars is like the others." It was the great trial of the curé of Ars, 8 years of suffering like a Calvary. One day, no longer able to bear it, he asked heaven for 3 signs to enlighten his faith. First, he wanted to find peace again because he had remorse. He was afraid of having done something against the Blessed Virgin, and the first sign was granted to him. "I cannot tell you through what torments my soul passed on this subject," he explained. "I suffered beyond anything one can say. At last, in the midst of so much turmoil and suffering, I cried out loud, 'Credo, I believe.' And at that very moment I found peace again." The holy curé then asked for another sign, that God would send him from Grenoble a learned priest whose presence would be an answer and able to strengthen his faith in La Salette. The next morning, a professor from the major seminary of Grenoble came to see him. "Father, what do you think of La Salette?" "I believe that one can and that one must believe in it," replied the holy curé at once. Finally, the third sign was granted to him. "I needed within a short time a sum of 1,200 francs. I turned to Our Lady of La Salette. In the evening, before going to bed, I found my table covered with gold coins. The next morning, when I got up, I again found my table completely covered with gold coins. There was exactly the right amount. Do you think that after that I could still doubt La Salette?" The curé of Ars believed again in La Salette. Again he blessed and distributed images and medals of Our Lady of La Salette and encouraged pilgrimages to it. He died proclaiming his faith in the apparition of La Salette. But the Bishop of Grenoble had not waited for the conversion of the curé of Ars to get to work, and to set up a patient work of documentation. He formed a commission of 17 learned and capable priests to study the matter of La Salette. They examined the healings thought to be miraculous and questioned the children. Maximin, before this venerable assembly, fidgeted in his velvet chair, no more concerned about his behavior than if he were guarding the cows. Melanie stood modest and shy. The children answered all the questions they were asked without hesitation, but absolutely refused to say their secret. This was the delicate point. How could one approve the apparition without knowing the content of these famous secrets? But Providence watches over everything. Pope Pius IX is aware of the events of La Salette and understands that the Bishop of Grenoble cannot give a judgment on the apparition and announce to the faithful the decisions of the Church, as long as the secrets are not known by those who have the right to know them. So he writes to Bishop de Bruyas to let him know that he, the Pope, would like to know the secrets of the 2 shepherds. Perhaps in this way the children will decide to reveal them. The bishop then entrusts a clever canon with informing the children of the Pope's wishes. "Maximin, I have come to speak to you about something important," announced the canon. "Can the Pope, speaking in the name of the Church, be mistaken?" "No, Father." "So if the Pope asked you for your secret, you would tell him, wouldn't you?" "I am not yet before the Pope. When I am there, I will see." "How will you see?" "Yes, according to what he tells me. If he orders you to tell him your secret, you will not tell him. If he orders it, I will tell him." "Good, my child. I am happy to see you in these good dispositions." The canon then told him of the wishes of Pius IX and went to find the shepherd girl. Melanie agrees to tell the secret to the Pope when he commands it. "And how will you tell your secret to the Pope if he orders it?" "I will tell it to him himself, or else I will write it in a sealed letter." "And that sealed letter, to whom will you give it so that it is sent to the Pope?" "To His Excellency the Bishop." "Good. When the Pope knows your secret, will it upset you if he publishes it?" "That is up to him. It will be his affair." There remains only to summon the children to the bishop's residence to have them write their secrets, which will then be sealed and taken to Rome. They went to fetch Maximin from school. The child was delighted by this unexpected outing and showed his joy with great excitement. "But Maximin," they asked him, "you must think carefully about what you are going to write. You must try to remember your secret well so as not to forget anything." "I do not need to worry. I remember everything well. You will see how quickly I will write without searching when we arrive." They brought the little shepherd into a large room with a floor shining with wax, and seated him at a minister's desk with writing materials and a spotless blotting pad. A canon and a trustworthy layman kept watch over the schoolboy. Maximin dipped his pen in the ink and shook it over the floor. "You think you are in a hut here," growled one of the supervisors. The innocent boy glanced at the stained floor. Then, without caring any more, set to work. He wrote with a startling speed, as if under the dictation of an inner voice. And suddenly, when his writing was finished, he stood up, threw his sheet into the air, spun around and declared, "Now I am like the others. People will no longer need to ask me for my secret. They can go and ask the Pope questions. He will tell it if he wants." Then he ran to look out the window at the sight of the street. Maximin's supervisors rushed to the paper thrown on the floor, but to their great indignation, it was only a draft covered with ink stains. "Is that how one writes to the Holy Father?" Maximin protested and grumbled, but had to set to work again. This time the work was done properly. They called his lordship. Maximin sealed his secret and placed the episcopal seal on the envelope. The witnesses signed the packet to guarantee the secrecy. Then it was Melanie's turn. The little shepherd girl wrote calmly, with a steady hand, without stopping to recall her memories. She asked for the spelling of the words defiled city and Antichrist. Each time they answered her question, and the child went back carefully to her work. When she had finished, they handed her a large envelope. She wrote on it, "To His Holiness Pius IX in Rome," and sealed it. The two secrets were then placed in a large envelope addressed to the Pope. Melanie, very moved, burst into tears. The next day, two trustworthy priests, Fathers Roussillot and Gerin, left for Rome carrying the precious document along with a letter from the Bishop of Grenoble for the Pope. He first read the bishop's letter. "Most Holy Father, the children have resisted the request made to them to give up their secret by thousands of pilgrims of every rank and condition, but they understood that there was an exception of right for the supreme head of the Church as soon as he showed the desire to know them." Then the Pope read Maximin's writing. His face did not show the slightest emotion. He finished by reading Melanie's secret. His expression changed. His lips tightened. His cheeks swelled, as if under the force of a strong emotion. When his reading was finished, he said, "I must reread these letters more calmly. They are disasters that threaten France. But Germany, Italy, all Europe is guilty and deserves punishments. I fear open irreligion less than indifference and human respect. It is not without reason that the Church is called militant, and you see here its captain." That was all that the Pope revealed of the secrets. The Pope then made it known that he agreed that the Bishop of Grenoble could declare that the faithful may believe in the apparition of La Salette. Bishop de Bruyas rejoiced at this and prepared a pastoral letter which he published on September 19, 1851, the day of the 5th anniversary of the apparition. In this pastoral letter, he recalls the testimony of the shepherds, the crowds of people, the healings, the conversions, the benefits of the miraculous spring, the impossibility of explaining La Salette in any other way than by divine intervention, and he goes on to declare, "We judge that the apparition of the Blessed Virgin, to two shepherds, on September 19, 1846, on a mountain of the Alpine range, situated in the parish of La Salette, of the deanery of Cour, bears within itself all the marks of truth, and that the faithful are justified in believing it to be unquestionable and certain." By this pastoral letter, the Church officially recognizes that the shepherds were neither deceived nor deceivers. It accepts the fact of La Salette as authentic and takes upon itself the task of passing on to the people the message of the beautiful lady. From that moment, the mission of the little shepherds comes to an end. The parish priest of Cour declares, "God took the two children of La Salette in their innocence and made use of them, but their mission is finished, the mission of the Church begins." Maximin and Melanie remain just as faithful to their beautiful lady and continue to pass on the message through an exemplary life marked by suffering. For they had much to suffer. An unwanted fame weighs heavily on them, and whatever they do they are watched, judged, criticized. And without the apparition they would have remained unknown to everyone and would not have been uprooted, leading a life for which they were not made. Maximin wants to become a missionary, but the religious authorities do not encourage him in this path. He is nevertheless admitted to the minor seminary of Grenoble in October 1850, where he shows himself to be the most scatter-brained of pupils, and his piety is still very slight. The following year, he enters a minor seminary a few miles from Lyon, but the experience is no more successful. So he is then entrusted to Father Champon, parish priest of Saisons, near Grenoble, who becomes his private teacher, but without much success. Father Champon had been away for a week, and when he returned, some charitable people came to warn him to take precautions with Maximin, who, they said, had taken the parish money and gone out drinking to the great scandal of everyone. "And what day was it?" asked the parish priest of Saisons. "It was Wednesday morning that the fellow was found dead drunk in a public square in Grenoble." "Wednesday morning? That is impossible. Maximin went with me to Lyon. He did not leave my side during those 8 days. He served my Mass every morning at Fourvière, where he received communion with fervor. All this is nothing but pure slander." One day Maximin, accompanied by a friend, eats his meal incognito at a common table, and people begin to talk about La Salette and the shepherds. They praise Melanie, but when they come to Maximin, it is only to call him good for nothing. "And you, young man," one of the guests asks Maximin, not knowing it is he, "what do you think about it? There may well be some truth in what he says." Maximin answers without taking offense. The discussion becomes lively. Attacks rain down on the young shepherd, but Maximin shows no bitterness, and everyone, except the friend who was with him, remains ignorant of his name. During the summer of 1854, Maximin spends a few days in Rome accompanied by a great friend of La Salette. Maximin meets several cardinals and tells them the story of the apparition, as well as to the superior general of the Capuchins and to the Pope's first chamberlain, and the latter presents Maximin to the Holy Father. The Pope receives him with great kindness and asks him a few small questions about the pilgrimage, but does not speak to him either about the apparition or about the secret. "The Holy Father must not have had much confidence in my youth," Maximin says naively when he returns. Another time, he is taken on pilgrimage to the tomb of St. Francis Regis at La Louvesque, where 25 Jesuit fathers are gathered for their annual retreat. Maximin is brought before them, and they try to intimidate him. Maximin faces opponents who are very skilled with words, and it is a continuous stream of objections. And then this weak 6th grade pupil is seen to astonish his listeners for 4 whole hours. All his answers are of such strength, clarity, and accuracy that they withdraw filled with respect for the apparition. At last Maximin passes his baccalaureate. He is 20 years old. He still wants to become a priest, but he must be taken away from Grenoble and is sent to the Jesuits in Dax in the lands. Under the cassock, he remains a frank, warm, good-natured schoolboy, but with an incurable mischievous streak. One day he tells all the students that there is a scripture class when it is not true. All the seminarians go to the classroom, but there is no teacher. Maximin is scolded. "Young man, at 22 one does not behave like a child. You see, you are only a big child. Today, for your amusement, you have turned the whole house upside down." He is placed next to Father Grandour, who at every moment comes to scold him. But the Jesuits succeed no better than the others. After 2 years, he has to return to Isère, where benefactors have found him a trainee position with the tax collector of La Tranche. He stays there only a few weeks and leaves for Paris, without connections, without friends, without money. It was for him a difficult period. He finally finds a job at the Imperial Hospice of La Vaisonnette, but they do not keep him. And it is then that he makes the acquaintance of good people, the Jourdain couple, who adopt him as the child of the family. His stay at the Hospice of La Vaisonnette gave him the desire to become a doctor. The Jourdains provide him with the means, and he follows the courses at the faculty. The students set traps for him. He avoids them all as if by a miracle. But after 3 years, his record for stability broken, he grows tired of his studies. It is true that he is now 29 years old. His pockets well filled by a benefactress, the Marquise of Pignerolles, he leaves for Italy. It is at this time that Pius IX is threatened. Maximin's heart is moved. He wants to defend the Pope. On April 23, 1865, there he is, a papal soldier. He lives the life of the barracks, not of combat, but keeps strict anonymity. He is now a mature man, with big black mustaches and very candid eyes, a little awkward in conversation. He is not without common sense and judgment. His piety has grown stronger. He likes to speak to his beautiful lady with the trusting and simple innocence of a child speaking to his mother. He says his rosary every day, never tires of praying, and always carries with him a medallion containing a fragment of the stone on which the beautiful lady, more brilliant than the sun, was seated. He becomes friends with Henry de Courgenec, a generous heart and without false piety, and the latter's suspicions were awakened by Maximin's devotion. So he made a connection between his name and that of the seer of La Salette and finally guessed the truth. Maximin was very upset by it, but Courgenec was generous toward him. "I imagine he will search in my purse as often as in his own. Well then, I will do it for love of the Virgin Mary, and I hope she will be grateful to me for it." Henry de Courgenec later became a Jesuit and always remained Maximin's best friend. Maximin remained a papal soldier only for a few months. It was claimed that he deserted in order to escape a court-martial, but the truth was known only much later. A sergeant had quarreled with Maximin, who, to defend himself, made an unfortunate and involuntary gesture. He knocked off the medal of Castelfidardo, a kind of Legion of Honor, that the sergeant was wearing on his chest. It was because of this incident that Maximin was forced to leave the papal soldiers. He then returned to Cour and settled in a house that his adoptive parents, the Jourdains, had in the area, and he often goes up to the place of the apparition. Then a new adventure begins. A shady businessman wants to use him to exploit a trade in liqueurs made with plants from the mountain of La Salette, and for which his own name will serve as advertising. Maximin explains that he practices this trade to earn his living by the sweat of his brow. Unfortunately, the partner goes bankrupt and secretly leaves with all the equipment, leaving Maximin poorer than ever and disgraced in the eyes of many. At the same time, the Jourdains lose their fortune, and their house near Paris is looted and then burned during the War of 1870. Maximin's health begins to weaken, so he then writes his profession of faith about the apparition of Our Lady of La Salette, in which he recalls that born poor, he has remained poor. "I would be rich by now if I had had the cowardly willingness to deny the truth. Indeed, many would have paid me very dearly for such a scandal. My testimony has always been the cause of all my ups and downs. Why was I not left in my mountains? My less troubled life would have given me more joy, and the black bread of my village would not have failed me as often as the rich food of the big cities." In his will he declares, "I firmly believe, even at the price of my blood, in the famous apparition of La Salette on September 19, 1846, an apparition that I have defended by words, by writings, and by sufferings. After my death, let no one come to claim or say that he heard me deny myself about the great event of La Salette, for by lying to the world, he would be lying to himself. In these feelings, I give my heart to Our Lady of La Salette." He died very devoutly on March 1, 1875. He was not yet 40 years old. He rests in the cemetery of Cour, and his heart was placed in the Basilica of La Salette near the high altar. Mélanie is a pious young girl who receives communion with great fervor. Very humble, she blushes to see herself represented in pictures beside the beautiful lady. She wants to become a nun, but her family and her friends oppose her vocation. It is only at the age of 19 that she can finally enter as a postulant in the convent of the Sisters of Providence at Cour. On October 10, 1851, she receives the habit and takes the name Sister Mary of the Cross. She is then sent to Corinck, near Grenoble, where she is entrusted with the young children of the kindergarten. She carries out her duty with care, keeps an exact, a little strict discipline, and manages to teach her little pupils what she herself did not know. She is a model for her companions and even for the whole community of sisters. However, she must withstand many trials and temptations. The most constant one is her fame, and the Bishop of Grenoble does not judge it wise to admit her to her vows, and he explains himself. Mélanie underwent trials that would have been enough to set aflame the calmest imagination and to shake the most tested virtue, having become since September 19, 1846, for a great number of people, even the most important and the most distinguished, the object of delicate attentions, tender and respectful courtesies that resembled a kind of worship. Although the community paid tribute to her piety and her zeal, we believed it was our duty to refuse to admit her to the annual vows, in order to form her effectively in the practice of humility and Christian simplicity. In May 1854, Melanie leaves Corinth without having been admitted to profession and takes refuge in the convent of Cour, where she spends a few painful months, not knowing what to do or where to go. And it is then that Bishop Newsham, Bishop of Birmingham, on pilgrimage to La Salette, offers to take her with him to revive the fervor for La Salette in Great Britain. With the consent of her bishop, Melanie leaves for England and stays at the chaplaincy of the Carmelite convent in Darlington. The contemplative and demanding life of the nuns attracts her, and finally she enters the Carmel. It was a splendid ceremony. Melanie, dressed in a wedding gown, adorned with jewels of priceless value lent for the occasion, receives the habit on February 25, 1855. She finds in the quiet of the Carmel a few years of happiness. But this girl of the mountains, used to wide open spaces and to running after the herds, cannot adapt to this cloistered life. After 6 years, they decide to bring her back to France, and the rest of her life will be spent in Italy, except for a few brief stays in France and several pilgrimages to La Salette. Wherever she goes, she inspires respect and leaves an impression of great virtue and gentle piety, giving the greater part of her time to prayer and meditation. Like Maximin, born poor, she died very poor, having wished for and asked nothing beyond what was strictly necessary. Until the end of her life, she never stops repeating the great event of La Salette, and the Bishop of Grenoble, Bishop Fava, was able to state, "Melanie, whom I went to see and question at Castellamare, would sign with her blood the account that she gave and has always maintained." She dies on December 14, 1904, in Altamura, in Italy. She was 73 years old. The people gave her a magnificent funeral presided over by the bishop himself, surrounded by the chapter of his cathedral. It is in Altamura that her body rests, and her tomb receives many pilgrims drawn by her reputation for holiness. People would have liked to see her canonized, as well as Maximin, but the seers kept their little faults, remaining closer to us, and perhaps it is better this way. Maximin and Melanie passed on the message. Because they spoke, the crowds were stirred. First it was Cour, then the nearby villages, then all of France and the neighboring countries that went up to La Salette. At the beginning there was no road, only a mountain path running along dizzying cliffs. Women, children, old people, the sick, the disabled climbed the mountain in long caravans, the weakest on muleback, the others on foot, some even without shoes as a penance, and their feet were bleeding. When they arrived on the mountain, they had to sleep under the open sky, despite the cold and the icy wind, because for shelter there were only a few miserable wooden huts. To house them, it was first necessary to build an inn. Bishop de Broglie decided to do so, and also wanted to raise a sanctuary in honor of the Virgin and in gratitude to her. It was a giant task. Transport was done on muleback, and stone from Gargas was used. This colossal undertaking lasted more than 15 years, but everyone wanted to take part in it, either by the work of their hands or by gifts. The places of the apparition are carefully preserved in their original state, and to make them more vivid, 3 groups of statues are placed there. The Virgin in tears near the miraculous spring, the Virgin speaking to the children a few steps farther on, and the Virgin rising to heaven on the small plateau. The path taken by the Virgin before disappearing is said to recall the route followed by Christ going to Calvary, and pilgrims carried on their shoulders cast-iron crosses decorated with bronze designs and made of it a way of the cross. The mountain of La Salette remained for a long time difficult to reach. So from the very first years that followed the apparition, one saw everywhere, first in France and then in the rest of the world, pilgrimage centers dedicated to the Virgin of La Salette appear. At the beginning of this century, there were more than 1,000 of them spread throughout the whole world. In Africa, in Oceania, in India, in both Americas, and the faithful still come there to invoke the Virgin in tears. Some of these pilgrimages receive a great number of pilgrims, for example, Attleboro in the United States. A sanctuary of La Salette in the Madurai, in India, is perched at an altitude of about 7,200 feet. Thus there was created spontaneously, starting from La Salette, the era of the great pilgrimages to the shrines of the Virgin. The Assumptionist Fathers organized the first national pilgrimage, which went first to La Salette, but which very quickly spread to the other great places of devotion: Lourdes, Fatima, the Holy Land. When people speak of pilgrimages, they think of miracles. Maximin's father and a woman named Laurent were the first to be healed by the water of the spring, and there were hundreds of others. But at La Salette, there are above all conversions which often remain unknown. Thus, for example, in the spring of 1854, a young officer, Lieutenant Garaud from Toulon, comes to La Salette out of curiosity. He does not practice his faith and leads a disordered life. He drinks the water of the miraculous spring and at once falls to his knees. In tears, he asks to confess. He is converted and spends the rest of his life with the reputation of a true apostle. A few years later, there was another story. It was in 1884 in England. At that time, it was very much looked down upon to be Catholic. In a small provincial station, a train stops, a priest gets off and approaches an employee. "My friend, I must stop here between two trains. I am leaving my luggage in storage, but may I entrust to you this precious bottle to which I am very attached and which I am bringing back from France?" This bottle contained water from La Salette. The employee, known for his hatred of priests, agrees with a smile, and the priest leaves the station. Curious people gather around the employee. He raises the mysterious liter bottle, asks for a corkscrew and a glass, then declares, "Ladies and gentlemen, this king of greed, this dirty papist priest, is extremely attached to his quart. I will have time to spit in the face of this bigot when he comes to complain to me about his empty bottle. You are going to see what you are going to see. To the health of the priests." In one gulp, he empties the glass under the amused eyes of the crowd. Laughter is ready to burst out. But what is this? The hero lowers his eyes. A tear runs down his cheeks. He is very pale. "He has been poisoned," exclaims a witness. "No," stammers the employee. "It is not death that I have drunk, but life, light, and truth. It is repentance." He withdraws away from the crowd and sobs until the priest returns. He is converted, becomes Catholic, and tells his incredible story to anyone who will listen. Such spectacular conversions are exceptional, but Our Lady of La Salette works many of them, and many remain unknown to the crowd. It is she who also began an important movement of conversion among writers at the end of the last century and the beginning of this one. Ernest Renan was no doubt thinking of the Virgin of La Salette when he wrote, "I will perhaps return to religion, but humble like a little girl, conquered by a Madonna." This miracle took place for his grandson Ernest Secheri, an officer in Africa. In his book, The Voyage of the Centurion, he tells of his conversion. One day a holy card reached him which he read with amazed pleasure and uneasiness. On it was a picture of the Virgin in tears of La Salette, and on the back there were these simple lines. "Have prayed for you from the top of the holy mountain. It seems to me that she is weeping over you, that Virgin so beautiful, and that she wants you. Will you not listen to her?" Secheri did not want the Virgin to continue to weep over him. On his return to France, he renounced his errors before a statue of the Virgin of La Salette and died as a hero during the First World War. Léon Bloy, the Knight of the Virgin of La Salette, of the Lady of Compassion, was one of the most famous converts. He wrote, "I wanted to see this glorious mountain that the feet of the Queen of Prophets have touched, and where the Holy Ghost spoke through her mouth the most powerful hymn that men have heard since the Magnificat. I climbed toward this abyss of light on a stormy day. In furious rain, in the struggle of raging winds, my ears shattered by the cries of the torrent." With him, his whole family of writers was converted. Stanislas Fumé, Van der Meer, Jacques and Rice Maritain, Henry Guéon, Bernanos, Massignon, Paul Claudel. Huysmans was also a famous convert through the Virgin in tears, and he wrote very beautiful pages in his book, The Cathedral, dedicated to Our Lady of La Salette. Well-known Catholic writers spoke about La Salette: François Mauriac, Gaëtan Bernoville, Daniel Rops, and many others. Fervent believers often ask the Virgin of La Salette to help them and guide them in their undertakings. Let us cite as an example Pauline Jaricot, the founder of the Society for the Propagation of the Faith. Father Giraud, whose cause for canonization has been opened, drew from the teachings of the Virgin of La Salette the doctrine that made him one of the greatest mystics of the last century. And what about the saints? The curé of Ars died invoking the Virgin of La Salette. St. John Bosco was 30 years old when he learned the news of the apparition of La Salette, and he was deeply moved by it. He founded a work to house, feed, and educate poor orphans, and he often spoke to them about La Salette, and they listened with great attention to the story of this Virgin who had appeared to two unhappy children like themselves, and without schooling. Don Bosco wrote a wonderful story of La Salette that his protégés printed themselves, and they sold more than 50,000 copies of it. Not far from La Salette, in the small town of Lamure, Pierre-Julien Aymard was born. He was 35 years old at the time of the apparition, made the pilgrimage very often, and obtained miraculous healings. It was the Virgin of La Salette who gave him the idea of founding the two religious congregations of the priests and the servants of the Most Blessed Sacrament. Saint Marie Pelletier, founder of the Good Shepherd of Angers, Saint Sophie Barrett, founder of the Ladies of the Sacred Heart, and Saint Emilie de Rodet, founder of the Sisters of the Holy Family, also had a deep devotion to the Virgin of La Salette. Bishop de Broglie did not limit himself to founding an inn and a sanctuary on the Holy Mountain. He wanted to build a monument even more living and more lasting, a congregation of religious meant to pass on the message and, so to speak, to succeed the little shepherds. He founded in 1852 the Congregation of the Missionaries of Our Lady of La Salette, which gradually spread to Grenoble, to France, and abroad, fulfilling to the letter this prediction of the Curé of Ars to the first Superior General. A day will come when your institute will have members throughout the whole world. Wherever they are, the missionaries of La Salette pass on the message of the beautiful lady. Not only in Europe, but also in North and South America, in Africa, in Oceania, in Madagascar, and in Burma. Their mother house is of course on the mountain of La Salette, but the general headquarters is in Rome. And a missionary of La Salette, Father Berthier, founded for young men who wished to become priests and were prevented by their age from entering the seminary, the Congregation of the Holy Family. Another bishop of Grenoble, Bishop Janalhiac, founded a congregation of Sisters of La Salette meant to help the fathers pass on the message. Maximin and Melanie did not marry, did not have children to continue passing on the great news, but they have, to succeed them, 3 religious families who repeat throughout the world the words of their beautiful lady. The pilgrim climbing to La Salette no longer has to take a mule track along dreadful cliffs. Instead, his car now travels on a fine mountain road, wide and safe. Even better, one can now reach La Salette by plane, as an airstrip has been built 2 miles away to accommodate certain aircraft. But the true pilgrim goes up on foot from Cours, or, like some, from Grenoble, and finishes the last miles by making the way of the cross. La Salette is a pilgrimage of penance. Even in winter, pilgrims go up to the sanctuary, despite the road being blocked by snow. Up there, at the very place where the Virgin appeared, wept, and spoke, the pilgrims listen, moved and deeply touched, to the most wonderful of stories. The Virgin wept because she is the mother of mankind, and because she wants to reconcile us with her Son Jesus. That is why she is invoked under the name of Our Lady, Reconciler of Sinners. The pilgrims kneel, pray with fervor at the feet of the statue of the Virgin in tears, and drink from the miraculous spring as a sign of faith. Then they gather in prayer before the Virgin speaking to the little shepherds, and in the depths of their hearts, they too hear the words of the beautiful lady. You must go to Mass on Sunday, pray regularly, not scorn God, be everywhere and always faithful Christians. That is all, and that is a great deal. The pilgrims then climb the small hill and meditate for a few moments near the Virgin ascending to heaven. Melanie and Maximin saw the beautiful lady disappear into the light. Let us turn our eyes toward her. Christians know that she is waiting for us in heaven. The basilica resounds with hymns. Processions wind along the slopes of Gargas accompanied by the joyful peal of the bells, creating a whole atmosphere of celebration and prayer that fills hearts with inner joy. In this place situated between heaven and earth, made holy by the tears of the Mother of God and the prayers of generations of pilgrims from every race and every country, one becomes a better person. And when night falls, each person, holding a torch in hand, walks in a long line in a magical procession, singing the praises of Our Lady of La Salette.
Marie, belle dame, Marie, notre secours, viens remplir notre âme de tes larmes d'amour. Ave, Ave, Ave Maria, Ave, Ave, Ave Maria. Marie, belle dame, merci pour ton discours, mais c'est